And now a major sex scandal engulfs the Harris Waltz campaign. Oh, man, are the wheels coming off. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, trust me, a lot to talk about today. But right now, literally right now, as you and I are now speaking to each other, as I speak to you now, the Harris Waltz campaign is in full panic mode. They now have a major decision to make. Tim Waltz is now engulfed in a major sex scandal. And now they don't know how to deal with it or handle it. Apparently, many within the Harris campaign are reaching out to their liberal media allies, like CNN, like the New York Times, like the Washington Post, like MSNBC, and begging them, don't cover the story, just ignore it, and hopefully we can ride this out with 1 week left to go. There is now a huge faction within the Kamala campaign that says Waltz must hold a press conference now, today, immediately, and address it before it devours what is left of this campaign. So here is exactly now what happened. It was first hot tip to the Daily Mail. It was first broken by the Daily Mail. It has now been picked up by the New York Post and multiple other media outlets across the United States. In an exclusive interview, Jenna Wang, W-A-N-G, you can look it up yourself, don't take my word for it. She is the daughter, or I guess was the daughter, of a very powerful top Chinese Communist Party official. She also had a secret fling with Tiananmen Tim Waltz. And apparently in 1989, when Tim Waltz arrived, not during the Tiananmen Square massacre, he's been caught red-handed lying about that. In fact, she confirms that he completely lied. He was not in Hong Kong. He was not in China during the Tiananmen Square massacre. He only arrived months after the massacre. According to her, Waltz arrived again with the full approval and sanction of the Chinese Communist Party. He was teaching English in a province in China. She was a young girl then. She was in her early 20s. She is the daughter of a very prominent, powerful Chinese communist official. And she said that she and Tim Waltz met. She taught English as a second language. She went up through the ranks of the Chinese Communist Party. She was a member of the party, and so she had certain privileges. One of them was higher education and being able to teach English as a second language. Apparently, they met while Tim Waltz was in China. He apparently, according to her, walked up to her, whispered in her ear, "You're beautiful." And according to her, that began a months-long romance. Now, this is very important. According to Jenna Wang, she said social conventions at the time, especially among the communist elite, that if her father ever found out that she was sleeping, being romantic or intimate with a Westerner, doesn't matter if they're politically communists. The fact is, anyone who was non-Chinese, especially somebody who's from the West and white, it would be a scandal of epic proportions. She would be, in her words, disowned. And so, in public, they never showed any affection. They never held hands. They never kissed. They just acted like they were just colleagues and friends. But privately, according to her, she met with Tim Waltz. She met with him. They used to listen to George Michael, songs from he was big in the 80s, George Michael. Careless Whisper was their favorite song. They would dance. They would hang out together in private. And this is what she said exactly to the Daily Mail. By the way, she said that she loved his eyes and his big mouth. I swear that the features of his mouth, which are quite big, she found attractive. And then she said that, quote, we talked for hours and hours. We stayed in bed. We had sex. He continued to buy me gifts. I could never stay overnight because of the social conventions. It was very repressive. Couples walked around the city like robots. My father would have been very, very angry and sad if he had found out. So, according to her, Tim Waltz then returned to the United States. He then wrote her numerous love letters and began to hint to her, dangle the prospect of marriage. She apparently, and this is what she says, that she fell head over heels for him, that she fell deeply in love with Tim Waltz, that not only did she fall in love with him, she wanted to marry him, and she told him she wanted to marry him and start a family with him. He then returned to China for one of his teaching junkets, and bribing her almost, he bought her blue jeans, he bought her jewelry, he bought her Ray-Ban sunglasses, were considered at the time luxury Western goods. But she said by this time, his demeanor changed. He began to show affection to her in public, knowing that this was taking an immense risk for her, that this would lead to her career and her life being utterly destroyed. And a few times they took a trip together to southern China to go to the beach, and he would kiss her in public, and this caused a scandal among ethnic Chinese. And at one point, he even insisted that she sleep with him on a train as they were going to Hainan Island, in which that led to one of the conductors literally berating her, saying, you are shaming the Chinese people by sleeping with this Westerner overnight, and doing so in a way that everybody can see that. So she began to press upon him, my life is literally now in your hands. My career, my reputation, everything I have. She then said, I love you. I want to marry you. Do you want to marry me? Apparently, Tiananmen Tim, this is where the politics of Tiananmen, of Tim Waltz didn't quite extend to marrying this daughter of a powerful Chinese official. So, according to Jenna Wang, he said to her, you just want a U.S. passport. You just want papers. You just want to go and live in the United States. According to her, and she's now 59 years old, she lives in Europe. She has a very good life in Europe. She says, I'm telling you, it had nothing to do with the passport. I was actually in love with him. I wanted to marry him. But I saw an ugly side to him. He was selfish. He was, quote unquote, just using me. He then began to discard me, and he dumped me. And I felt cheap and common. He dumped me like I was just a prostitute. Someone to sleep with, someone to have a good time with, but he was never serious about me or marrying me, and he misled me. Now, she says that the reason why she's coming out with this story now is that she wants everybody to know that Tampon Tim, Tiananmen Tim, according to her, has a dark and ugly side. I'm almost quoting her verbatim. That he is selfish. That he only cares about himself. That he's a perpetual, incorrigible liar. That he never was in China or Hong Kong during Tiananmen Square, and that he lied to her, and that he lied to other Chinese women, because apparently he played around with other Chinese women in China, and that he doesn't have the character and the integrity to be vice president or be anywhere near a leadership position. Now, this is clearly a very serious sex scandal on two grounds. Number one, he's scum. I mean, I'm giving you the bare bones of this, but when you read it, he misled her, he used her, he exploited her, he mistreated her. I mean, he really, honestly, the guy's a cad. There's just no other way to put it. A selfish cad. But there's something even more deep. As I said on X last night, do you know what it is to sleep with the daughter of a powerful senior Chinese Communist Party official? To be able to hobnob with them, to go to dances with them, to party with them, to work with them? This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Tim Walz had and has deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party. He literally was in bed with them. He literally slept with them. My friends, this sex scandal could now topple what remains of the Harris-Walz campaign. Okay, here could be the actual real October surprise. 6:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so Jenna Wang now is breaking her silence. The media now are in full panic in this country. The liberal corporate media, apparently, according to Elon Musk last night on X, Kamala's campaign now is riven by division. Many say Walz needs to confront this story now before it consumes the entire campaign, while media outlets like CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC are urging the campaign. So now they're basically almost now directing and running the campaign. This is how crazy and perverted the media has now become. They're saying, we will cover for you. We will not run this story or cover it or discuss it. And if need be, we'll attack this poor woman and defame her. Don't address it. If you address it and hold a press conference, you will draw more attention to it. Now, why is this scandal such a big deal? To be fair, Tim Walz was not married at the time. He would marry his current wife several years later. So, I mean, it was a secret fling, and he obviously used this woman. I think there's no question. In fact, I feel sorry for her because I think she was burned by him. I believe her when she says she loved him. I do believe her. In fact, here's what she said to the Daily Mail, quote, "We were deeply in love, and I wanted to marry him and start a family." And she goes on to say, you don't understand. For me to marry a Westerner, especially an American, non-Chinese, I would have been completely disowned by my family. I would have been immediately thrown out as a pariah. My father, my mother, my siblings, they never would want to have anything to do with me again. So my life would be over as far as I know it. But he romanced her. They listened to music together, George Michael. They danced. She said their feelings for each other, I'm just quoting what she said, were very intense, very passionate. And she said that he was just using her for sex. And when she confronted him and said, look, I really would like to marry you. Can't you see I'm putting everything on the line for you? And she said that she saw a selfishness, a coldness, that he was so egocentric, so self-centered, that she just couldn't believe it. In fact, as she told the Daily Mail, when he let it be known that I was just a fling for him, something inside of me died. And she said, I've never felt anything for him again. When it didn't happen, meaning getting married or a proposal, I felt very unhappy and sad. Tim's behavior was very selfish. And she then goes on to say, look, we were on this 10-day tour of South China. This was now the second time Waltz had come back to China. They had begun their affair, their secret fling, the first time. He knew the price. I was a teacher. I was the daughter of a very powerful senior Communist Party leader. I had to set an example. People looked to us teachers as an example. And fraternizing with a Westerner was really frowned upon. It was a source of immense shame, public shame, and ostracism. And so one time they're on a train heading to South China to go to the beach. And he begins to feed her a slice of a pear. You know, the way lovers do, they feed each other. And this is what she said, quote, "People were staring at us. I tried to reject it," i.e. the pear, the slice of pear, "because I was very afraid. Teachers were supposed to set an example." She then, as I mentioned in my opening monologue, she said things really came to a head after a train ride. Again, this is in southern China, where Waltz this time insisted that she not just, stay in his cabin for a couple hours, but literally spend the night and sleep in his cabin. And she said, "Don't you understand? I'm going to lose everything. It's going to get back to my father, to the communist authorities. I'm going to lose not just my job, not just my career, but literally my public standing in China. I will be branded a quote-unquote slut and a prostitute for having, been intimate with a Westerner. Like, you're being reckless. You can go back to America. I have to live here." And so she said, "Look, you promised me," apparently he was dangling marriage. And she said, "You said you wanted to marry me. Will you marry me?" And that's when he said, no. No. I mean, he wants to sleep with her, but he doesn't want to marry her. And that's when she said, "I left him." He said, "Please, let's talk it over. Don't leave." And she just left. Apparently her mother had stomach cancer and she had some kind of surgery for stomach cancer. And then she went to be with her mom to take care of her mom. And she said she turned the page on Tim Waltz and never thought about him again until she sees him now running for vice president of the United States. Now, this is her point. And then I want to take all of the calls, 617-266-6868. That Tim Waltz, according to her, is a deeply selfish man. But it's not just that he's a deeply selfish man. This is a man who had access, free reign, to the highest upper echelons of the Chinese Communist Party, including going to dances, parties, social events with the privileged children, in this case, the daughter of the communist elite. Now, I'm telling you, only a communist fellow traveler could have had that kind of access. And so what it shows beyond the shadow of a doubt now is that Tim Waltz has profound, deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and he is clearly now a lover and supporter and agent of Communist China. And I got to tell you, the guy's a dog. On top of everything else, he's an absolute disgusting dog. So let me ask all of you, what do you make of this scandal? And will it now be the final nail in their coffin? 631 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Finch in the great state of Oregon. Thanks for holding, Finch. You're going to kick us off, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Nice to talk to you. It's really early on the West Coast, and that's a big point, but it's not my point of that. Even on the West Coast, we can never sleep until the election happens. I'm calling in about Tampon Tim. He is a nightmare. No 3 women in my family, 3 women, very closely related to me, that will not vote for him because of abortion, and that he can step up even beyond that. And I'm not talking about people in a red state. I'm talking about the Midwest. I'm talking about the Pacific Northwest. We have woken. We can see that he is a nightmare beyond what you're talking about today and this morning. He's a nightmare for women. He's a nightmare for the United States. And we need to show up to vote. It doesn't matter if you're in a blue state, if you're in a purple state, if you're in a red state. You need to show up to vote. This matters. And Tampon Tim is not the answer to women's problems. He will further women's problems.
Oh, there's no question. Finch, you're not 100, as I like to say. You're 1,000% correct. Look, this is a guy, literally, that watched while the biggest city in his state was burned to the ground in the wake of the George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. And in fact, his wife deliberately kept the windows open as Minneapolis was burning. They were looting, plundering, shooting at police officers. Officers were being killed, maimed. Literally whole chunks of Minneapolis just up in flames. And his wife, and she said this in an interview, kept the windows open and went breathing in the air from the burning tires, saying, Tim, this is the smell of revolution. In other words, this was the beginning of a Marxist communist revolution they believed in the United States. And that his job as governor was to try to foster and help push along this revolution. This is a guy who went to China, 15 times? Who has deep financial ties to the communist Chinese regime? A man who openly praises their regime, praises Mao, the greatest mass murderer. No one killed more people than Mao. Not Hitler, not Stalin. And he's praising Mao. And then let's not even go down the road of what he's done to children with, genital mutilation and these transgender surgeries for 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, or abortion, how radical his policy is, that he's had at least 5 post-birth abortions happen in his state because of the law that he signed. 5 babies born alive were allowed to die under Tim Walz's new law, the law that he passed a couple years ago. So this guy's a monster. He's a monster. He's also a pervert. And if no one else has the guts to say it, Finch, I'm telling you, I'm going to say it. I wouldn't let this guy babysit my kid. I wouldn't. Not after. By the way, did you hear now? I don't know if you saw this. This guy was never a head coach. Coach Tim Walz. He never coached a football team. He was an assistant coach. Non-salary. They didn't even pay him $1 because he was accused of improper touching of some of the players on his team. His nickname now in Minnesota is Jerry Sandusky. So this is the kind of guy who, by the way, he knows so much about football. Listen to this, Finch. He's playing video games with AOC. They did this stunt over the weekend to try to appeal to male voters. He was playing Madden, the professional football video game. He sucks. People were shocked. Aren't you supposed to be a coach? You don't know the basics of football? You're getting beaten by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a football video game, the Madden game? No. Finch, this guy's a pervert. This guy's a pervert who mistreats people, and that's what Jenna Wang is trying to say. He discards human beings. When you're no longer useful to him, he tosses you aside like you're nothing. And that's why now they don't know what to do. Because, you see, Kamala Harris has a big problem now, Finch. She picked Tiananmen Tim. That was the biggest pick she makes as the presidential candidate. Who's going to be her right hand? Who's going to be her potential successor? And she ended up picking this guy with all of the scandals that plague him. This guy's been nothing but a disaster since the day she picked him. That's why Finch, when she came out and said, I'm picking Tim Walz, I'm like, are you mad? Of all the possible choices, this is the one crazy pro-Chinese, pro-Maoist leftist you pick? And honestly, a pervert to boot? Finch, that's why they feel they need to address this scandal. Because it reflects not just badly on Waltz, it reflects badly on Kamala. If she can't even pick a half-decent VP, how the hell is she going to pick a cabinet? How the hell is she going to run the country? Final word to you, Finch.
Not going to run the country. Donald Trump is going to win. We need to show up. We need to make it too big to rig. We need to show up because pervert Tampon Tim and Kamala Harris, they will never, ever get to step foot in that White House in 2025. Never. We need to show up, and it's too big to rig is what we need to always think until the election day. Show up.
From your lips to God's ears. Finch, I know it's literally the middle of the night in Oregon. Thank you very much for calling, my friend. 617-266-6868. Pablo in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Pablo, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm just calling because I'm kind of disappointed in the subject, and I'll tell you why. This is something the Democrats would point out. I bring this out. We already know his character. And about the only value this has is to illustrate his deep connections with the Chinese party. But the sex part, think about what Bill Clinton was doing at the same time, and America could care less. He was over 21. She was over 21. They weren't married. You know, they had sex, but I just think it takes away from all of the other issues we're looking at with the campaign. And I don't think anyone's going to be moved by this at all, other than the character issues. I'm more concerned about him failing to show up for his unit's deployment to Iraq.
Well, but we've talked about that. This is a breaking story. It's a big story. It's such a big story that I'm telling you, the Kamala Harris campaign now, they're at each other's throats because they don't know how to deal with this. Half of them are saying he's got to hold a press conference. If he holds a press conference, this thing is going to go all over the world. And the other half, I mean, you know, Pablo, the media is petrified. The CNNs, the New York Times, the NBC News, CBS, they're calling them up saying, look, we're going to cover you guys on this. Don't let him address it. It'll give this story a lot more legs. So obviously they think it's a serious scandal. And I'll tell you why it's a serious scandal. It's not Tim Walz had a girlfriend and slept with her. That's not the story. The story is Tim Walz went to communist China and then he slept, had a secret fling with the daughter of one of the most powerful communist Chinese top officials. The only way you get close to a woman like that is if you're a fellow traveling communist yourself. Like, this is not, China is not America. It's not as if, hey, we met at the movie theater, or hey, we met at a Shake Shack, or, you know, whatever. Hey, I looked at her, she looked at me, there was a chemistry. No. To even walk in those circles, you have to be someone that is sanctioned and approved by the Chinese communist regime. Now, the other thing, and this is why it's devastating, this was a woman who literally put everything on the line to be with him. Her life was ruined. It's not, you know, it's not like it's, again, you're dating an American. She was never the same again because it came out in public that they were sleeping together. And for her, that was the kiss of death. She never became a teacher again. She was never able to get a career again. She had to become a translator, move to Europe. Her whole life was completely upended. And he knew that. And that's why she said, look, for me, this is not a fling. I'm going to put everything on the line for you. I'm going to lose my father. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my standing. And this guy used her. That's what she said. He used me like I was a cheap prostitute. And then when I was no longer useful, he threw me aside. That's why they're in a full meltdown. It's not a question of, two consenting adults. This guy took advantage of a powerless woman, and he practically destroyed her. That's the kind of guy Tim Walz is. And that's who Kamala Harris has picked. Pablo, I don't know about you, but that seems to me like a pretty big deal. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, 2 super quick points, and I want to go right back to the phone lines. Now, look, in the larger scheme of things, this is not Watergate. Okay? This is not, Hunter Biden's laptop. This is not, Joe Biden taking $25 million from the communist Chinese. So I'm not saying this is the scandal of the century. But to me, it goes to the heart of who Tim Walz is and Kamala Harris. They're both disgusting, despicable frauds. I mean, absolutely fraudulent. Now, let me just give you an example. I talked about him playing Madden, the professional football video game, which, by the way, Mike is a big gamer, and he says Madden sucks. He says it's easy, it sucks. He likes to play this college football video game, which he says is much better, much more difficult, much more challenging. But anyway, let that go. Now, Tim Walz, remember, this is central to his biography. That's how they sold him at the convention. That's why Kamala Harris picked him. He's supposed to be the coach. He's the coach, right? He's Coach Walz. And so he does the whole coach shtick. He's an ordinary guy from the heartland, just like you and me, and he's a coach. And as he told everybody, we can sleep when we die. Let's, as a team, push forward like a football analogy. So he loves to use football analogies. I'm telling you, this guy never coached. And how do I know this? It's not just what the players are saying who were under him and what the school is now reporting, that he was an assistant coach who never got $1, literally $1 for coaching. He just basically hung around the field. As Mike said, he probably gave the kids, orange slices at halftime. Okay, that's the kind of person he was. He plays AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this Madden professional football video game. Not only does he get his clock cleaned. Okay, some people are bad at video games. Fine. But then he goes out. Now, those of you that follow football, you know exactly what I'm going to say now. Okay, what I mean by this. He tweets that AOC runs a mean pick six. In other words, he's trying to say that she runs a mean play. That's what he's trying to say. Pick six. The problem is, in football, I don't care if it's pee-wee football, high school football, college football, professional football, everybody out there, you follow football. You know what I'm about to say. A pick six in football, this is universal, is when the defense intercepts the quarterback and runs it back for a touchdown. It's a pick six, an interception, and then you run it for a touchdown. It's not a play. It's the exact opposite of a play. And that's why he was getting roasted on social media. I'm talking millions and millions and millions of people saying, you never coached a day in your life. She runs a mean pick six? What? Pick six is not a play. It's an interception, and then it's when the defense not only intercepts the ball, which is a big play, but then actually runs it back for a touchdown, scoring a touchdown for the defense against the offense. Buddy, you never coached a day in your life. That's what I'm telling you. He's a complete fraud. Now, on top of that, and this I got to credit Sandy Shack. She made this point to me, and brilliant. I'm telling you, absolutely freaking brilliant. She said, Jeff, there's another dimension to this entire scandal. Remember, Tim Walz was allowed to go to these parties, dances, social events where you had to be a communist fellow traveler to even be in the room with the children of the Chinese communist elite. Her father, Jenna Wang, was one of the most powerful communist officials in China. Why do you think he dated her? Why do you think he pursued the daughter? Because he wanted to be part of the Chinese communist hierarchy. Sandy's completely right. It's like, you want to go after the heiress, right? Oh man, she's loaded. Oh, no. Her father is really rich. No, you bag her. You marry her. Oh, you're on easy street. You never got to work another day in your life. So let me seduce this daughter of a powerful Chinese Communist Party official. And guess what? Not only will I get immense wealth from it and power, I'll be directly connected and plugged into the Chinese communist regime. I can serve the Maoist dream. I can serve Beijing. I can serve the Chinese Communist Project. But now he finds out from her, because they get more romantic, more intimate, the relationship begins to evolve. She wants to go to America with him because her father will disown her. There will be no power. There will be no connection to the Chinese communist regime. There will be no perks and privileges from marrying this woman. It's like suddenly you're sleeping with the heiress to get her to the altar, and then she says, well, no, my dad's not going to give me any money. No, he cut me off. I'm not in the will. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I'm not that interested in you. That's the real meaning of this scandal. This man is a lover of the Chinese Communist Party. This man wanted to be an intimate part of the Chinese Communist Party. This man then targeted, like a predator, a daughter, someone of a top official, slept with her, misled her, lied to her, seduced her, manipulated her, knowing that this was going to destroy her life if it didn't work out. And then suddenly, when told, no, my dad will never approve of you. Well, why? I'm a good commie. I'm a good communist. No, buddy, you're white. Hey, buddy, you're a Westerner. This stuff doesn't fly down. This was then. I think now it's a little different, but this is the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s. And they're like, no. In China, no. Among the regime, no way. You're out. I'm out. We're all out. And that's when he said, you know what, honey? I'm not marrying you. And that's why she says he treated me like I was a common prostitute. She said he's selfish, manipulative, beyond all belief. Don't trust this man. He doesn't have, these are her words, the character or the integrity to be anywhere near a leadership position. And she also says he lies about everything. Not just Tiananmen Square. He's a liar to his core. That's why the Kamala Harris campaign is now literally in a panic mode. Do we address this scandal or do we try to sweep it under the rug? Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Well, Jeff, what else is new? The Democrats do not nominate people for the content of their character. Character is irrelevant to Democratic voters. They are ignorant and lack a moral compass. My next comment, the Democratic Party lives by the race card. Hopefully it will die by the race card. Harris loyalists pulled off the biggest rope-a-dope in American history, forcing the party to give her the nomination. It was unbelievable what the loyalists pulled off for Kamala Harris. Jeff, I ask, if President Trump is elected, please start the show by playing the national anthem and God Bless America. If the unthinkable happens, play taps, and let me tell you what my reaction is going to be if the unthinkable happens. I will be saying, damn them, they did it. Damn them, they did it. That's what I'm going to be saying if the unthinkable happens.
Well, Russ, look, things look very good right now for Trump, to be honest. So let's, I want to stay positive and optimistic. And we'll just wait till election night and probably the next couple of days. It looks like we're not going to have definitive results on election night. Maybe Monday or Thursday at the earliest. Sorry, forgive me. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday at the earliest. So we'll see how it goes. Russ, what I can just tell you is this. New Mexico now is in play for Trump. It is a dead heat as you and I speak right now. Kamala is pouring money into New Mexico. That should be a safe blue state for them. It isn't. Virginia, Southern Virginia, the early voting is apparently so high for Republicans that they are now thinking maybe they can pick off Virginia. So you got Virginia, you've got New Mexico, and then the state right north of us. Latest poll, I'm going to get to this in greater detail later in the show. Trump now has surpassed Kamala in the latest poll. 50.2% to 49.8%. Kamala's people now are worried. The Democrats in New Hampshire are now saying Trump is going to win New Hampshire. Start pouring money into the state now. We've only got a week left. Trump can pull this state out. So if New Hampshire falls to Trump, especially if New Mexico or Virginia falls to Trump, we're looking at a Trump landslide. This thing could be over by Wednesday morning. So let's just hope for the best, Russ. And yes, I definitely will be playing the national anthem and God Bless America when Trump wins. No question about it, because we'll have dodged a bullet. Russ, thank you very, very much for that call. Let me just say one other super quick point. What this also, for her to have picked Tim Walz, what this clearly shows, that to me now there's no question. After this revelation is unbelievable. You don't have a fling with the daughter of a top Chinese communist official unless you were a communist or fellow traveler yourself. Period. Full stop. You don't get access, you don't get entry into that world. So for her to pick Tim Walz, what this shows is that the CCP, the Chinese communist regime, they've got a hold over Kamala herself. Not just over Tiananmen Tim. They own a chunk of Kamala. And of course, Obama, who's really pulling the strings of Kamala. So it's not just Joe Biden and the Biden crime family that's compromised by the Chinese communist regime. I believe now it is clearly the entire leadership of the Democratic Party and now a good slice of the Republican establishment as well. Mitch McConnell, that goes without saying. So for her to have picked him, who's so obviously a mouthpiece and an agent of the CCP, tells you how deep the communist Chinese have infiltrated our government, have infiltrated the upper echelons of our government, and that's why they fear Trump at all costs. Because the one thing the Chinese communists, the one person they don't own, is Trump. And if he comes back to power, their entire nefarious clandestine network is going to be exposed. Agree, disagree? Mark in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
My Moonbat family almost convinced me because they were saying that, oh, Jeff is just entertainment. He's not news. And then they pulled this. Tim Walz being a sexy playboy. Why would a beautiful young Chinese woman want it? And I'm going, yeah, that sounds crazy. So I looked it up and did a deep dive. Turns out they never touched. because American citizens would have been killed if they had relations with a Chinese national. So I'm like, that's it. She never touched him, and she was only with him because she wanted a visa. That's all. That's like, oh, it makes perfect sense. You know, otherwise she would have had nothing to do with him, right?
Well, Mark, I mean, she says that she wanted to marry him. I mean, you know, I don't know. I can't read her mind. To me, here's the story, Mark. She was the daughter of a very powerful official. I'm telling you, a lot of Chinese men would give their right arm to date and marry a woman like that at that time, because that gave you access to the Chinese elite. She went for Tim Walz for whatever reason. Now, my suspicion is that Walz, remember, this is him now praising Mao. It's on the record. He was praising Mao Zedong. He was praising Chinese communism. He would go back and tell his students the glories of Chinese communism, how everybody gets 2 pounds of rice every month, how everybody is the same, doctors are paid the same as peasants. And he said, this is just an incredible system. We've got to have that here in the United States. So he's looking at her and he's saying to himself, oh, I marry her. By marriage, I can now rise to the upper echelons of the Chinese Communist Party, or at least have profound connections. But when she tells him, I said to him, I want to marry you. Now, the key part, I've kind of overlooked this. When he went back to Nebraska, he spends the summer, he's romancing her, he goes back to Nebraska. He's writing her love letters. In those love letters, he's the one that starts to push initially for marriage, not her. He's the one that says, send me a picture so maybe I can apply for a passport. Give me all your information. Because if you become my wife, then you're going to get a passport. So he's the one that starts to dangle the possibility of marriage and the benefits that'll come with it. Then he goes back the second summer to see her. And she says something about him changed. And she said, it changed when I told him, no, you don't understand. My father's going to disown me. The moment we go public with this, the moment we announce we're engaged and I'm going to be marrying you, my mother, my father, my family, everybody is going to say, I don't know you. I disown you. I never want to see you again. Click. Tiananmen Tim says, and what good are you to me now? And that's when he dumps her like a cheap suit. And she says she never forgot how cold he was when she confronted him about marriage. And he basically told her, no, honey, it's never going to happen. Mark, this guy was a sleeper Chinese agent. This guy was a Chinese communist fellow traveler who thought, you know what? I can pardon the expression, but to put it so crudely, I can bang my way to the top. I can sex my way, sleep my way, marry my way to the top. And he realized in communist China, you want to talk about xenophobic racism? That's xenophobic racism. If you're not Chinese, you're not marriage material. Full stop. At least to the elites. Final word to you, Mark.
Where can I find that info online about that relationship? I want to look that up.
DailyMail.com is the one that first broke the story. And then the New York Post has a really good follow-up to it. So DailyMail.com, NewYorkPost.com. I mean, there's a lot more outlets that have covered it, but I'm giving you the two big ones. And you can pass that off to your family, your liberal family members, Mark. Mark, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. Carrie in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carrie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Carrie.
Isn't it sad, Jeff, that oftentimes you have to go to the British papers to find out what's happening in your own country? Anytime something happens in America, I run to the Daily Mail because they're the only ones that have the story first. Only ones. But anyway, Jeff, not only does this speak volumes about Tim Walz and the type of person that he is, but it also speaks volumes about Kamala Harris and the office she seeks. This woman cannot make a good decision. She had the opportunity to select Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, which would have essentially handed her Pennsylvania, which she desperately needs. But she wouldn't do it because Shapiro is Jewish, and it would absolutely tick off her, Hamas supporters, the squalid squad, as I like to call them, and it would have really angered a lot of people. So instead, she picks this weaselly, weird, communist-loving bizarro Tim Walz. I can't imagine anybody looking at this ticket and saying, yeah, this is who I want running the country. This is who I think has our best interests at heart. He's a very little man. He really is.
Well, he's not. You're right. He's very weird. He's a pervert. He's clearly a pervert. And I think more of that is going to come out with those boys and at that football team. And we find out now he wasn't even a coach. He was they gave him a title assistant coach, but he literally wasn't paid a buck. He was just there to hang around those kids, those boys. So look, he's sick. He's a pervert. He's bizarre, but he's also China's man. And no, I look at it a bit differently, Carrie. It's Obama that's the shadow power behind Kamala. Obama told Kamala to pick Tim Walz. Now, why would Obama do that? Unless he's taking his orders from Beijing. My fear is a Kamala Walz presidency or administration would be nothing more than an extension of China here in the United States. They own them, lock, stock, and barrel. 719 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, huge story. It's gaining a lot of steam now. A lot of websites are picking up on it. It first broke in the Daily Mail, dailymail.com, which is a British newspaper. And I think it was Carrie in West Bridgewater who said, why do we need the British media to keep breaking stories here in the United States? Because so much of our own media is completely corrupt and in the tank for the Democrats and this regime. That's why. But anyway, the New York Post also has a very good story on it as well. And now it's starting to spread. And they're worried. The Kamala campaign now is very, very worried. Tim Walz had a secret fling with the daughter of a very powerful Chinese communist official. And anyway, you got to read the story. It's got multiple layers to it. Let's put it this way. He treated her horribly, and he clearly was angling to advance himself within the Chinese communist power structure. Now, why the hell would Kamala Harris pick him to be the VP? I mean, this guy's a walking national security risk. This guy screams Chinese agent, Chinese spy. I mean, it's almost like put a neon light on his forehead. And you can text the Kuhner Man 70470. And of course, as always, you can message me on Messenger. And this is from Eric, who makes an absolutely superb point. Jeff, Kamala did not pick Tampon Tim. China told her to pick the creepiest guy. The creep. I agree. I completely agree with Eric. This was not her pick. This came from the dear leader, from Barack Obama, who was given his marching orders from Xi Jinping. And Eric continues, Jeff, if you were a foreign leader and you wanted to rule over America and destroy it from within, you would get someone easily manipulated and help them to rise to the ranks and wait. The Chinese install their people in positions like they did in California, if you remember. Tim Walz doesn't even qualify to be the water boy. Well, I'll tell you this, that's pretty much what he was on that football team that he allegedly, quote unquote, coached in Minnesota. This is from Mark. Jeff, so the media is going to cover this story up. But if Trump left the toilet seat up by accident one time, it would be breaking headline news that Trump was, and he'd be accused of being discriminatory towards women and throw in that he's a racist and a threat to democracy just for the hell of it. When is the media going to be held accountable for these despicable actions? Well, that's, look, this is to me another angle to this entire scandal. So Elon Musk says, look, you got to see this story. This story is unbelievable. And he's got good sources within the Kamala campaign because he's the wealthiest man in the world. So everybody talks to him. He's got eyes and ears everywhere. And he says the Kamala campaign right now is badly split. There's huge infighting over this big story. Many within the Kamala camp are saying this is going to kill us. This will be our final nail in our political coffin. He's got to address this now before it spreads and consumes us. And you have the other half that are saying, don't mention it, don't discuss it. Now, apparently, CNN is so scared of this story, the New York Times and the Washington Post are so petrified that, and the MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, that they called the Kamala campaign. The media is now calling the Kamala campaign. So they're not just being their mouthpiece. Now they're trying to actively be their saviors and protectors and defenders. And apparently they called the Kamala campaign and they said, don't hold a press conference. I know that's what many of your people are saying. If he holds a press conference, we're gonna have to then cover it. We don't want to cover it. We want to protect you. We want to sweep this under the rug. So don't mention it. Pretend like it never happened. And we will ignore it in our coverage. You guys can ride this out. You only have 7 days left. And you want to know why? The media now as a profession, you look at the recent Gallup poll, is even more unpopular than Congress. The media, I'm not kidding, literally, is the most unpopular profession in the entire country. Less popular than prostitutes. Less popular than lawyers. Less popular than sleazy politicians. And you want to know why? Nobody can stand or trust the media? Now they're trying to run Kamala's campaign and giving her advice on how to do public relations and political damage control. So obviously, look, they know the story is true. And they know it's going to open a Pandora's box. They know all with Tim Walz, all roads lead to Beijing. And they can't cover this up much longer. Because I'll tell you what the Daily Mail didn't ask. And I'm telling you, that's the question I would ask to Jenna Wang, his lover of, 30 years ago, whatever it was. Did Tim Walz want a position within the Chinese Communist Party? Did Tim Walz talk to you about, well, if I marry you, does that open a lot of doors for me? And I'm telling you, I know what her answer is going to be. It's going to be a big, fat yes. Tim Walz is a Chinese communist traitor. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I got a toughie for you. Oh, the Kuhner man. Today's not going to be an easy Tuesday for you, Kuhner country. So here is the Kuhner country poll question of the day. And I really wouldn't want to be you right now to answer this. As always, it is sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Now, here it comes. Get ready for this. What do you think is Tim Walz's biggest lie? What's Tiananmen Tim's biggest lie? A. Sandy, what did we say for A again? That's right. A, that he was a combat veteran, that he served in a combat war zone. Was that his biggest lie? B, that he's a football coach, or was a football coach. And C, that he's not a communist. So, A, that he served, that he's a combat veteran. B, that he was a football coach. C, that he's not a commie. He's not a communist. What is his biggest lie as far as you're concerned? A combat veteran. B, that he was a football coach. C, that he's not a commie. Now, I'm telling you, is that tough for, well, well, there's B, C, I know what all of you are saying. Jeff, can we give us a way out? D, all of the above. No. Which one is the biggest of all the three lies, according to you? Or to you, the most egregious or the most insulting? You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER, WRKO.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in National ER. You can also vote via X. Again, last night I was active on X. You can vote, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. On first look, I would go with A. But then when I start to think about a lot of the allegations about him and improper contact with some of the football players under his care, I would go with B. But then when I think about the national security implications, I go, I got to go with C. So personally, I would be a C. But this one could go either way. I mean, this could be 33%, 33%, which has never happened in the history of the Kuhner Report. So I leave it in your hands. Joe in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing wonderful. I think everyone hit the nail on the head. Where same way I was thinking. Tim Walz was put in by the Chinese government. Obama, Biden, whoever pulls the strings for Kamala. And I was just wondering. So the Chinese government had Joe. So we had the president basically run by China. Now they have a vice president. I'm just wondering if Kamala gets in with Tim, do they eliminate Kamala and move Tim up to president?
Joe, can you repeat that last bit? If what happens to Kamala? Can you say that again?
If they get rid of Kamala one way or another, and Tim moves up to president, I'm just wondering, why would they want just a vice president? They want the president. And Kamala, I'm not sure she is tied up with the Communist Party as much as Joe and Tim.
Well, I agree with you. No, Joe, look, I think she's got ties to communist China. When you just ask her positions on communist China, it's identical to that of Joe Biden. And just to lay it out for everybody in 20 seconds, the attacks on Trump regarding tariffs, okay, if you notice, Kamala is going all in. Oh, we can't have a tariff. It's going to destroy the economy. It's going to raise prices. No. Tariffs affect China. The reason why Trump wants to put up tariffs is to stop the communist Chinese from stealing our jobs, stealing our manufacturing, stealing our industry, running these massive trade surpluses, and dumping all of their cheap goods and products into our country. So when she says we can't have Trump impose tariffs, what she's really saying is we have to continue this disastrous, treasonous trade relationship with China, in which it's essentially a one-way street, where our trillions of dollars of our wealth continues to be transferred to the communist Chinese. So when it comes to the tariff, to a trade war with China, she's completely the same as Joe Biden. When it comes to allowing Chinese illegals to infiltrate our southern border, she's the same as Joe Biden. When stealing our intellectual property, our research and development, on spying and infiltrating our country, on the Chinese balloon, the spy balloon, there was no difference between her and Joe. It's not so much that I think she's taking millions of dollars from Joe Biden. From communist China, the way Joe Biden was. I don't think it's that, Joe. I think it's just more, she's a San Francisco progressive. She goes back with the communist Chinese over 10, 15 years. Her party is now in bed with the communist Chinese. Her puppet masters like Obama and Biden. Remember, Biden is the one that made her as the VP. I mean, I don't want to go inside baseball, but Joe, if you remember, when Obama and Nancy Pelosi made the call to Biden, and as Pelosi famously said, Joe, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. It was a palace coup. They overthrew him. They wanted, Obama and Pelosi said, we'll have a quote unquote, this was their term, lightning primary. They didn't want Kamala Harris initially because they saw how badly she polled, even among Democrats. Out of 12 possible candidates, she finished dead last. They wanted Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer as the number 2. But Joe Biden screwed them by quickly, almost within half an hour, endorsing Kamala Harris. And with the racial, sexual ideology, the identity politics that dominates the Democratic Party, once Biden came out and said, and I'm endorsing Kamala, and she will be my successor, that was his payback to Obama and Nancy Pelosi. So he basically said, fine, you're not going to have me, I'm saddling you with Kamala. So, to be fair, they didn't want to run with Kamala because they can see what we're all seeing now. She's a disaster. But Pelosi is owned by the communist Chinese. Obama is owned by the communist Chinese. Biden is owned by the communist Chinese. Well, Biden now made her, and Obama and Pelosi, in a sense, made her as well. So all of her masters are the ones that are in bed with communist China. So she's got to toe the line. And they were the ones who told her, you're not taking that Jew from Pennsylvania. You're not taking Josh Shapiro. You're taking Tim Walz. The most pro-China, most left-wing radical governor in the entire country. So, China owns the vice presidency. China owns Obama. China owns the Biden crime family. China owns the globalists and the oligarchs who control the Democratic Party. And in effect, they will control Kamala. So, Joe, I got to give it to the communist Chinese. When it comes to infiltrating, when it comes to exerting influence, When it comes to bribing and buying off foreign leaders, nobody does it better than Beijing. They have it down to an art because they've been doing it for 10,000 years. Final words to you, Joe.
I just want to say everyone hit the nail on the head. They all believe exactly what we've been saying. It's incredible. China has so much money that they can buy off anybody in the United States, except for Trump and Elon.
And Joe, literally, that's why they're out to destroy Trump, because he's the only one who's not bought and paid for. And they don't want their treason. They don't want their corruption to be made public. By the way, that's why Mitch McConnell can't stand Trump. There's a new book out, a biography on McConnell. Privately, he hates Trump just as much as Joe Biden, just as much as Obama and Kamala. Why? Because the guy is owned by China to the tune of $80 million. He and his wife and his wife's family have deep commercial shipping interests right into China that has enriched them to the tune of over $80 million. Mitch McConnell is now one of the wealthiest men in the world thanks to Beijing. So how do you buy off the Senate Republicans? That's how you do it. And that's why they can't stand Trump. They can't buy him or bribe him because he's a multi-billionaire. More next. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just a very, very quick point. I want to go to Mags in New Hampshire. What is remarkable now in about the last week or so is that Barack Obama, that's right, the dear leader, Barack Hussein Obama, is not just campaigning for Kamala Harris. He's actually doing more events and more rallies than she is. You would almost think like, I'm sorry, but is he running for president again? And look, it's obvious. He's campaigning as if, as Mark Levin put it, as if he's the shadow power behind Harris. And I agree with Mark on this completely. It's because he is. You can see now, he's almost like he wants to will her to victory. He's the one now that's going to Pennsylvania. He's going to Michigan. He's going to Georgia. He's going to Arizona. He's blitzing all these states, these battleground states. And in particular, trying to tell black voters, especially black men, black male voters, hold your nose and vote for Kamala. If you won't do it for her, do it for me. And there's no question now. He is the power behind the throne. He's the shadow power. He wants her back. He wants her in the White House. He wants a fourth term because that fourth term, he believes, will finally complete his fundamental transformation, i.e. destruction of America. Agree, disagree. Mags in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mags, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Good to talk to you, and thank you as always for everything that you do, because God bless you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Sandy and Mike. Listen, C is my answer on the poll, okay? I want you to know that I think what Russ said this morning is very important, and I think that we should be playing the national anthem either at the beginning of your show or at the end of your show. There is a radio station that plays the national anthem every single day at lunchtime. I think we need to go back to where we remember. I think that everybody should be saying the Pledge of Allegiance in every school. I think it's very important that we go back to the way we used to be before the communist Chinese started taking over everything in our country. I have to say that I think that our House and our Senate are both have so many people that are owned by the Chinese that it scares me a little bit, but I have to think that when we take it back next Tuesday, amen, that we'll start to sort out who the people are that we need to get rid of. Trump is definitely going to be our next president, people. I have faith that he is going to be the one.
Mags.
Everybody needs to get out and vote, and people need to do what they need to do. American flags are important. We need to have them flying everywhere. And if you have a Ukrainian flag on your property, you better have an American flag. And every person that has an American flag on their car, if you have any other kind of flag and you don't have an American flag, Jeff, I blow my window down and say to people, where is your American flag? We are Americans. The pride of being Americans has changed, and we need to bring it back, Jeff.
Amen. Amen. Mags, look, I know you're a foot soldier for Trump on the ground, political foot soldier in New Hampshire. So I want to run this by you and get your reaction. I think you're almost the perfect person to ask this of. Okay, this broke yesterday, and it's causing a 5-alarm fire within the Harris campaign. So the New Hampshire Journal Analytica poll that was just released now shows for the first time in terms of polling, Trump has now overtaken Harris in New Hampshire, in the live free or die state. He now is leading by a 50.2% to 49.8%. So he's up 0.4%. Now, according to the New Hampshire Journal, this is their own, they said they did a very comprehensive poll. They say their poll is accurate, that Trump now is leading. And here's what they wrote, quote, the fact that Trump, who's lost the Granite State twice, is leading in a state Democrats carried in 7 of the last 8 presidential races could be very significant. It's one of a series of indicators that the Trump campaign is expanding the field of potential pickup states less than 2 weeks before Election Day. And they go on to say, this is now Caroline Leavitt, who, as you know, is a New Hampshire gal. She's from New Hampshire, Trump's national campaign spokesperson. In reaction to this poll, here's what she said, quote, there's a reason Kamala Harris has been spending money in New Hampshire. She's on defense and knows President Trump is on the path to victory. My question to you, Max, not as a partisan, not as a Trump supporter, but just as an objective patriot on the ground who's just reading the tea leaves. Trump's people now believe they can take New Hampshire. The New Hampshire Journal, with their poll, now says for the first time, Trump has caught Kamala and slightly now surpassed Kamala. On election night, can Trump win New Hampshire? Because everyone is saying if he wins New Hampshire, he's going to win the election. It's that crucial. What say you?
Jeff. 100% Trump is going to take New Hampshire. 100%. If you saw what I saw in the last week, I was just telling my sister this morning that I'm coming down Route 111, and there must have been 50 Trump signs on both sides of the road, little ones. Okay? All of the Trump. Trump is taking this country back by storm. It's not going to be a little. It's going to be a lot. And God bless you, Trump. And when you get back, I want to see these people in orange jumpsuits that have done this to our country. These treasonous criminals. I agree with Larry from Leominster. It's time to have a positive attitude, and every single person needs to know Trump is going to win. God bless America. God bless you. And God bless Trump.
God bless you, Max. Amen. Thank you very much for that call. Look, we all got to vote, no matter what. Even just for the national popular vote. You know, well, Jeff, we're in deep blue Massachusetts. Go and vote. Every vote counts. Don't give them the national popular vote, but we win the Electoral College. No, we want a clean sweep this time for the good of the country. So everybody vote, no matter where you live, no matter who you are, no matter what county or state you live in. Now, just super quick. Mags is supremely confident of Trump winning New Hampshire. Now, look, you know my position. If this was an honest, free, and fair election, I know Trump would run wild in New Hampshire and win. I know that. But let me ask all of you. Okay, especially those of you that live Kuhner country in New Hampshire. With the corruption in the New Hampshire election system, and we know that the elections in New Hampshire are almost as corrupt now as here in Massachusetts, do you still think Trump can pull it off? In other words, will New Hampshire be too big to rig? David in Melrose. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, David?
Hey, but Jeff, it's a good day out. Jeff, you know, with everything going on, number one, what makes me really aggravated, even this morning, Jeff, they had two voting boxes burnt, mail-in ballot boxes, and I forget where they were done at, but they showed them on the news this morning.
Yeah, it was in Oregon and in Washington State. They burned several ballot boxes, hundreds of ballots up in smoke, David.
Well, Jeff, we know who's behind it, if that's going on, because they probably Republican ballot boxes where I'm seeing that. And at the same time, Jeff, who are they to say that Elon Musk, the other day, they had it on the news, that he was paying people to vote in, you know, wait a minute. I don't think Elon Musk is going around paying people to vote, but that was on the news too the other day. And at the same time, they got all this other garbage coming out that's a total lie, and it just makes no sense, Jeff. And now all this other stuff going on, it's like somebody's paying somebody. It's like somebody's paying somebody, and at the same time, was he cheating on his wife at the time when he went over to China?
No. He met his wife in 1994, and he began sleeping with this woman in 89 and 1990. So it was a couple of years before he met his wife.
Okay.
But, you know, the point is he promised her marriage, and when he found out that, you know, the old man was going to disown her father, and the father was the big catch in all this. He was a Communist Party kingpin, one of these key Communist Party bosses. And when he found out that, hey, you know, you're not going to get anything by marrying this poor woman, then all of a sudden marriage was off the table. I mean, I got to tell you, Dave, you know, leaving aside that he's a communist traitor and a communist fellow traveler, the guy's really scum of the earth. Because, you know, when you read about her life was never the same since. Everybody found out she was with a Westerner, and she became in many ways a social pariah. She lost her job. She lost her career. Nobody wanted to be her friend. Her family semi-disowned her, not completely. She didn't marry him, but they felt disgraced and shamed by what she had done. And her life was ruined. He ruined her life. And he knew that. And how you could just string a woman along like that. I mean, I'm sorry, you're just an absolute scumbag. And he's done it to people his entire life and career. So leave aside the national security implications. Okay, just let that go for a second. Just as a human being, this is the kind of guy we want the heartbeat away from the presidency? Seriously. An absolute scumbag like this? I don't think so. And that's what I mean. Where do they find this guy? Dave, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, and I'll tell you, it was the Chinese who picked him. There's no question the Chinese picked him. They're calling the shots. 617-266-6868. Now, super quick, you need to hear this. So, ballots are being burned, literally lit on fire, in Oregon and Washington State. Several hundred ballots were just up in smoke. Now, listen to what happened in Pennsylvania. So, as you know, there's record early voting in Pennsylvania and many other states. Okay, records are being shattered. Now, this took place in a Republican stronghold. So, this area of Pennsylvania, much more red than blue, a lot more Republicans than Democrats. And apparently, there was a very long line. And some of the liberal poll workers began saying, come back, leave and come back. In other words, the line is so long, why wait an hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours? Just leave. And when things die down a little bit, like in a couple of hours or tomorrow or the day after, come back. Well, a prominent Republican Pennsylvania committee woman, Val Biancaniello, hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, Val Biancaniello, she was there. She was waiting in line like everybody else. Now, and this is very important, okay, molto importante. She didn't say vote Republican. When she heard them saying, shoo-shooing everybody, saying, no, leave. The lines are just too long. Come back tomorrow. Come back the next day. Now, remember, most of those voters are most likely Republican. There are some Democrats, but they're mostly Republican. All she said was, no, stay in line and vote. In other words, you've made the time, you've made the sacrifice, you're here. Who knows if you'll come back? So those that are in line, they've made the effort, they've carved out the time, they're in line. You send them away, you're essentially interfering in the election because you don't know if they'll come back and they may never vote. And so she's obviously seeing this as a ploy to try to discourage or disenfranchise Republican voters. So she starts hollering, screaming and yelling to everybody, shouting, stay in line and vote. Just stay in line and vote. You came here, you're in line, vote. She didn't say vote Republican. She didn't say vote Democrat. She didn't state what political party to vote for. All the woman is saying is, stay in line and vote. You're here. You've been waiting so long. Just wait until you finish and vote. Well, guess what? The police showed up, and I swear to you, they put her in handcuffs. They arrested her, a Pennsylvania committee woman, Republican, simply for saying, stay in line and vote. Listen now to the chilling audio. Roll cut 19, Mike.
Wow. That's crazy. You locked her up? That is insane, man. She is not influencing people. She is not at all.
Now, that's a person in front of her, a voter, and he just can't believe the police are putting the handcuffs. And they're like, look, it's illegal to campaign in a vote, in a voting area, or to tell people who to vote for. That's illegal. But he's like, wow, what? Like you're putting handcuffs on her? Are you serious? She's not telling people to vote for a specific party or a specific candidate. All she just kept saying was, stay in line and vote. Who's she influencing? Nobody. She's just, and I'll tell you what her instincts are, and she's right. You don't know if they'll come back. And the only reason why these are liberal poll workers, and they're saying, well, line's too long, come back tomorrow, because they're primarily Republicans waiting in line. So, hey, who knows? Maybe they won't come back, huh? And that's how you get 300, 400, 500 extra votes, fewer votes for Donald Trump. And that's why the committee woman's like, no, well, you shouldn't send this away. We're here. Let people vote. What are you afraid of? Now, on what charges and on what basis they arrested this woman? You know what? Hell needs to be paid. This is beyond outrageous. Beyond outrageous. So these are now some of the dirty tricks that the Democrats are trying to pull because they can see the results of early voting. Early voting now for the first time is now favoring Republicans over Democrats. Tommy in the Philippines. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. My original call was about walls, but you just brought back a fond memory. 1980, I lived in Boston Mission Hills section and voted for president for the first time at age 20. And we used to vote on Tremont Street at the Tobin School. And I got there about 7:45. And on Tremont Street, when it turned exactly 8 o'clock, there were 2 Boston police officers at the end of the line. Other people showed up 3 minutes after 8 or whatever and raised a huge stink about, you're denying my constitutional rights. And one Boston cop said to them, the polls close at 8. That's the bottom line. You were not on time. Sorry about your luck. And there were, the usual whining. And got to be all right. But I did not get inside that building till.
Tommy, you're breaking up on us. I could only hear a little bit. Basically, Tommy said there was a voter who came in after 8 o'clock. The Boston police said, I'm sorry, you can't vote. And they escorted him out of the building, and he's acting like he's all being disenfranchised. And the police are like, well, no, voting is, it's election day, and the deadline is 8 o'clock, not 8:02, not 8:05, not 8:10. Now, if you're in line, and the line is so long, right, and it goes past 8 o'clock, then of course you let that person vote. But if the person arrives after 8 o'clock, Tommy, I'm with you all the way. All the way. I'm sorry. You're late. So you're late, you snooze, you lose. Deadlines are deadlines, and they're deadlines for a reason. Tommy, did we reconnect with you?
Yes, you did.
Go ahead, Tommy.
That is exactly what happened. I didn't vote until about 8:45 evening, but I did vote. But I was one of the last people in line on Tremont Street back then in 1980 for the presidential election. Absolutely.
Tommy, very quick, is Tim Walz a national security risk? Are we now looking at an agent of China who now potentially could be the vice president of the United States?
30 trips to China. It's a wonderful culture. But his comments that he's made about how China does wonderful things and get things done, you cannot do the same thing in the United States with the EPA, the ACLU, eminent domain that China does. China does whatever it feels like, okay? And they built the biggest dam in the world, $35 billion. Who cares about 5,000-year-old villages? Get the hell out of here. No. Something, behind every progressive, Jeff, there is a closet case totalitarian. Remember that.
Tommy, as always, thank you very much for that call. I love that phrase. Scratch a progressive and you get a screaming totalitarian. And that, frankly, is Tim Walz and Kamala Harris to a T. To a T. 617-266-6868. Okay. Tim Walz now engulfed in a major sex scandal. He's been now, it's come out. He had a secret fling with the daughter of a Chinese communist official. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are jammed. I promise I'm going to get to the phone lines. Look, with this scandal and the panicked reaction that you're now seeing within the Kamala campaign, they don't know how to address it. They don't know how to deal with it. Some say just tackle it head on, call a press conference, talk about it, try to just put it behind us. Don't let it fester and fester and fester for the next 2, 3, 4 days during the last week of this campaign. We are now literally down to the last week. And of course, you have all of these media allies of Kamala saying, we have your back. We've got Tim Walz's back. We will not cover this story. Ignore it. You hold a presser, big press conference. We're going to be forced to cover it. And this is going to blow up what's left of your campaign. You can tell. It's obvious now. Kamala is teetering. The campaign is teetering. They're bleeding in New Mexico. They're bleeding in Virginia. They're bleeding in New Hampshire. They're bleeding even in New York, where polls now show Trump is within striking distance. Never mind Trump's big surge in the battleground states. So they're crumbling, and you can feel slowly but surely they're crumbling. Now, listen to this. We are 1 week away. Okay, as I said, 7 days before Election Day. Kamala Harris is still fighting to shore up the black vote. And in particular, she is hemorrhaging black men, black male voters. Now, if the current trend holds, she's projected to win only about between 67 to 70% of the African American vote. Historically, Democratic presidential candidates to win the Electoral College need to win 88% of the black vote. 85 is the bare minimum. It's the floor. You can't go lower than that. Anything lower than 85%, it's almost statistically impossible. Outside of cheating and voter fraud, okay, let that go. Outside of that, they cannot win. It's impossible. She's at 67 to 70. So, listen now to Kamala. She goes on Club Shay Shay with former NFL star wide receiver, and this guy, by the way, is an absolute jerk. An unhinged, pro-Black Lives Matter, left-wing progressive moron with, nothing between this guy's ears. But he likes to yell and scream and shout, and he thinks the louder you shout, the more intelligent or impressive you become. It's Shannon Sharp, okay? Anyway, so she's on with Shannon Sharp. Now, I don't know what she's trying to say here, but she's trying to be deep and profound. Roll cut 6, Mike.
I try to share with young people to remind them that you cannot ever be burdened by other people's limited ability to understand who you are. Like, don't let their limited ability burden you about your own ability, you know?
No, I don't know. I really don't. Don't let their limited ability burden you about your own limited ability. Okay, you okay? Ay. See, that's her problem. Okay? And I guess the only guy that seems to understand her, these two airheads, they connect. She's got nothing between her ears. He's got nothing between his ears. And somehow they understand. They talk a language nobody else can seem to understand. So now she goes directly to the black vote. And it's pandering at the most disgusting level. She's now trying to shame them into voting for her over Trump by playing the ugly race card. Roll cut 6A. And by the way, notice her accent. Now she changes her accent. Roll cut 6A. Mike.
So, part of what we have to help people understand is don't think you're in Donald Trump's club. You're not.
Right.
He's not going to be thinking about you. You think he's having you over for dinner?
This is, first of all, he's had many blacks over for dinner. Mar-a-Lago, which is where he lives. In fact, there's been weddings at Mar-a-Lago. What I want to know from her is, who the hell have you invited over for dinner? How many jobs have you created? How many businesses did you create? What have you contributed to our country, except living off the public trough? And yet there you are now, trying to claim he's not part of you're not part of his club. By the way, this about the man who opened up Mar-a-Lago to Jews and blacks before any of his other competitors did. And this was in the 1980s. And by doing that, forced all the others to open up their country clubs. And she's now saying he's a racist? He won't have you over for dinner? He's had Ben Carson over for dinner. He's had countless other African Americans over for dinner. I bet he's a more gracious and generous host than you'll ever be. You cheapskate, you. So this is what I mean. This is all you have left now? This is your pitch? You're not part of his club? Look, I've never been invited to Mar-a-Lago. It's okay if I never go to Mar-a-Lago. It's not my thing. You know what I care about? Food on the table. Lower food, grocery, gas prices, lower energy bills, securing the border. I don't care if I'm invited to his house for dinner. He does this, I'm a happy man. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. She's getting desperate. I mean, she's pandering. She's trying to shame now black men in particular to vote for her. When you're trying to shame someone to vote for you, it's not going well. It really isn't. And by the way, again, it's like almost every hour now, there's a new scandal about Tim Walz. This is now breaking. So the secret fling with the daughter of a very powerful Chinese communist official, that was so 4 hours ago. Okay, listen now to this. It's just been uncovered. Another lie about Tiananmen Tim. So, apparently in 2006, he blatantly lied about receiving an award from the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce. The Nebraska Chamber of Commerce has now released a letter saying you're trying to claim, and you're on the vice presidential campaign trail, that you somehow got this award from the Chamber of Commerce. You said you got it all the way back in 2006. You never got an award from the Chamber of Commerce. You never got one, ever. And we ask you to clarify this. So, again, he's been caught in another lie. I told you, the guy lies even when he doesn't need to lie. He's that much of a pathological, incorrigible liar. And who the hell picked this guy? This is your VP? Now, you know how bad Kamala is? Okay, one more clip. I want to go back to the phones. You got to hear this. If I said it, you just wouldn't believe it. You say, come on, Jeff. Come on, you're embellishing a little for dramatic effect here. Okay? Come on, you're exaggerating slightly, to make us laugh. I'm like, okay, all right. This could be genuinely one of the most awkward, cringe moments in American political history. So she's in Michigan in front of several thousand supporters. And this was in Michigan. And the crowd starts chanting. They're trying to generate this kind of AstroTurf. They're trying to generate a little momentum for her. So the whole crowd, they're holding up some Kamala signs, and they're chanting, Kamala, Kamala, Kamala. Now, any politician worth his or her salt, you pump your fists, you clap, you whatever, thank you, or, we're going to win this, or whatever. There's a million ways to deal with it. No. That's not how Kamala Harris That's not Comrade Kamala's style. Comrade Kamala's style is to kill all the momentum on the spot. And how does she do it? The room goes from a 10 in terms of 0 to 10, political temperature, intense passion, to a 0 in 2 seconds. Listen to this. Roll cut 5. Mike.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us.
What
and
a
listen, moron. I have fought my whole career to put the people first.
As Bugs Bunny would put it, what a maroon. What a freaking moron. Now, the audio doesn't quite do it justice because it's more of a video shot. You see the crowd, they're all chanting, Kamala, Kamala, pumping their fists. And then she says, now I want all of you to say your own name. And everybody stops, like on a dime. And the confusion, the whole crowd they're looking at each other like, what? Well, no, what? But if I say Jim, and this guy says Mark, and she says Betty, and that one says Marianne, it's going to be like the Tower of Babel. It's going to be like sheer confusion and anarchy again. Like, what? The point of a chant is to say one name, not 5,000 names. Like, hello? I mean, you want to talk about a political mood killer. You can't make it up. The most awful, I'm sorry, I have to say it. I don't want to use the Lord's name in vain, but I got to say it. The most god-awful candidate that's ever run for president of the United States. Here, let me play it again. Picture, big crowd, 5,000 people, chanting in unison, Kamala, pumping their fists. And then within 2 seconds, everybody stunned, confused, heads moving, looking at each other like, what? Like, what? And suddenly you could hear a pin drop. That's Kamala. That's the Kamala way. Roll cut 5. Mike.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And listen, I have fought my whole career to put the people first.
We you, with that annoying cackle. Oh, like nails on a chalkboard. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, buddy.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm out telling people to vote, my man. Outstanding. Hey, listen, this whole Chinese Tim Walz thing. The story's going to come out, Jeff, and he's going to have to cover it. But what they're going to do is they're going to spin this as the only reason Trump's talking about it is because it's anti-Asian hate, Jeff. The media's going to be all over this, and they're going to be playing Trump, calling it the Wuhan flu and all the anti-Asian comments that he's made. And they're going to run this, Jeff, as purely Trump's racism and hatred toward Asians, Jeff.
Mark, the way you know him, the way you nail him to a T, it is absolutely hilarious. Mark, can we start calling this China collusion? But unlike Russia collusion, this is real collusion between what's happening, with Biden and China, obviously, but now with especially Tim Walz in China. 30 visits to China. I mean, praising the regime over and over again, sleeping now with the daughters of top communist officials. I mean, Mark, if this is not collusion, I don't know what the hell is.
Jeff, there's some interesting things happening here. You were talking earlier about how Tim Walz trying to sleep his way to the top. Well, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. His boss did the same thing. Then you got Eric Swallowwell, who was, banging a Chinese spy. But, the problem with Jeff is I don't doubt that there's a lot of Republicans that are on the take, too. Just like you said, Squishy Mitchie there, I'm sure he's on the Chinese payroll. And I'm sure there's others on the right there that are right in lockstep with him. So, I don't think this is strictly a leftist thing, though. They admire the commies and they love them, so I don't doubt that at all. But I think this is a bigger problem than just on her.
Interesting. Mark, as always, thank you very much for that call. And you're right, by the way. Chinese infiltration, Chinese corruption, Chinese money is buying both parties. I think the Democrats more than the Republicans, but a lot of Republicans are on the take. No question about it. And as I said, Mitch McConnell, top of the food chain. Art in Lunenburg. Thanks for holding, Art, and welcome.
Morning.
Hi, Art.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to offer one more option for the biggest lie.
Sure, go ahead, Art.
Okay, so I think the biggest lie about Tim Walz is that he's a male. I mean,
well, you can say lie? Hunter. Even Hunter as well, right? He's a hunter. Remember he didn't even know how to load his own shotgun when they did that pheasant hunting photo op? And the guy's like, well, how do you load this? What? So, Art, we can do combat veteran. We can do he's not a communist. We can do he's not a football. He's a football coach. He's a male. I like that. And he's a hunter. What do you think, Art?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I'd like to add one more thing. I was an agent in Kandahar for the OSI, and I ran confidential sources in a combat zone. And within 3 months, I had government employees under my thumb, basically, and I had them doing whatever I wanted them to do. So, I mean, this has been going on for decades, and we all know what's going on. I mean, they disenfranchise the people, and then they separate.
Art, you're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. And that's why Harris and Walz must lose on November 5th. Art, thank you for your service. Thank you for your call. 617-266-6868. More with your calls next. 8:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, here it is. This is now her ultimate pitch. You can't get more desperate than this. Here it is, 1 week to go. Kamala Harris goes to a church in Philadelphia. You know who's voting for Kamala? God is voting for Kamala. Listen now to Comrade Kamala. Tell the congregation, you want to fulfill God's will? Vote for me. Roll cut. I'm telling you, Jeff, come on, you're exaggerating. No, here it is. Roll cut 3, Mike.
So in just 9 days, we have the power to decide the fate of our nation for generations to come. And on this day then, on this beautiful Sunday morning, I am reminded God expects us to help him. We got work to do.
Okay, well, I got news for you. God's going to render his verdict, or to be more accurate, the voters. We're going to render our verdict. And I would, if I had to guess, I think it's Satan that wants you to win, not God. I don't want to be presumptuous, but if I was a betting man, I'd say Lucifer is more your kind of guy. John in Raynham. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, John.
So, a little disappointed with the poll questions because I was going to go D all the above and then some. I think definitely the national security risk, it's a no-brainer. I'd like to briefly talk about, it's been with us for a long time. Senator Feinstein with the spy driver for 20 years.
Yes.
Swalwell, head of Homeland Security, married but dating a spy, and she got out of the country in a hurry. Mitch the snitch, on and on and on it goes. That's just what we know. How about all the others? I don't know. As far as Walz goes, football coach, I think what his role was to oversee the showers for the young men. That's my gut on that. Guy's a creep.
Oh, John, I agree with you. I'm telling you right now. And that's what a lot of the former players are now coming out and saying. Again, his nickname now is, among many of them, is Jerry Sandusky. You know, that infamous assistant coach at Penn State who got, eventually caught diddling the kids. And it led to Joe Paterno, legendary head coach, being fired because it was done right underneath his nose. But, look, he's a pervert. He's a cad. He's a traitor. He's a liar. He's a manipulator. And he's not even a good liar. Just to give you an example, and John, I want to let you finish. He's taken, forget all the trips to China, okay? Just let that go for a second. Forget that he has direct ties to the Macau Polytechnic Institute in China, which is a complete Chinese Communist front group. Forget that he's praised Communist China repeatedly and was a big admirer of Mao. As I said, the worst, most evil, genocidal mass murderer of the 20th century. He killed more people than Stalin and Hitler. Okay, to me, who's worse at that level, you can't say. But one of the worst monsters in human history. He openly has praised him repeatedly. Okay, let all that go. He's been taking money from communist China for decades. Free hotels, private trips, private planes. They fly him wherever he wants to go. Speaking fees, speaking engagements, you name it. It's all fronted and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party or their groups, affiliated groups here in the United States. And what does Tim Walz say repeatedly? China's not our rival. China's not our enemy. China's not our adversary. No, they're our friend. We should trade more with China. We should let them dump everything they have into our country. You don't impose a tariff. If they want to steal our intellectual property, by the way, he denies it. He says, they don't steal our intellectual property. No. So, if they want to steal our research and development, go ahead. They want to steal our intellectual property, go ahead. Now it turns out, look it up, John, please, don't take my word for it, okay? This has come out multiple media outlets. He's tied to the lab in Wuhan, to the Wuhan Virology Institute. He's got ties to the very lab that unleashed the COVID-19 pandemic upon us and upon the entire world. So he is up to his eyeballs in Chinese money, in Chinese influence, and now it turns out in communist Chinese women. Final word to you, John.
Well, final word and a suggestion for their administration. Final word is conflict of interest. I have to take a test and be updated every year for the Commonwealth about conflict of interest this, conflict of interest of that. There's no blatant conflict of interest there. Absolutely. And the final thing I have to say, Jeff, as far as this administration, I'm going to do this.
John, my friend, you are an early contender for caller of the week. He just flushed his toilet. John, are you still there?
What you do,
John? John, can you flush it again? Because that's what we're all going to do on November 5th. That's what we're all doing.
I'm going to flush it right now, just for you, Jeff.
Nice flush. Nice and deep. Yeah, John, I love you, buddy, in a non-sexual way. I love you. John, thank you very much for that call. That's exactly what we're going to do to him on November 5th. A good flush, a deep flush. Lisa in Amesbury, thanks for holding. Is this not the best audience in the world or what? Lisa in Amesbury, thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Lisa, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Well, after that last call.
I know. It's hilarious. Well, listen, now we know why he went to China 30 times. You know, his significant other might have believed his reasons, but I never did.
Yeah, well, maybe he's got a thing for the Chinese women. You know what I mean, Lisa?
A lot of the Democrats don't realize is they're over here and they're doing things for China, and they've been calculating this plan for many, many years. But when China, if they get in and China comes over here, they're going to be the first ones China's going to dispose of, because they're all lying cheats and you can't trust them.
Well, Lisa, you're dead on. And look, this is really, all kidding aside, this is the scary thing about all of this. I mean, this is why they're in panic mode in the Harris campaign. This is why Elon is telling everybody, you don't understand how deep this story potentially goes. That's why they're in massive cover-up scandal mode at the Harris-Walz campaign. Because you follow the money and you follow Tim Walz and you follow what he's been doing in China for the last 35 plus years, and it leads straight to Beijing. And what that means is, that's not just a phrase. If you want to destroy and take over a country from within, this is exactly how you do it. You buy off the legislature, check. You buy off the top leaders of the legislature, Nancy Pelosi. You have Mitch McConnell. Just run down the list. Check, 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 check. Then you buy off the president. That was Joe Biden and his crime family. Check. You buy off powerful former presidents who are power brokers, like, say, Barack Obama. Check. And now you get someone, Joe Biden, look, let's be honest. He's just a bag man. Joe Biden he was pro-Chinese, but not ideologically pro-Chinese, not culturally pro-Chinese. Joe Biden is he'll take money from anybody, anywhere. Take it from the Ukrainians, from the Kazakhs, from the Romanians. We found out from the Chinese. Money is money, and he'll just do your bidding. No. With Tim Walz, it's different. You can see that. He loves the communist Chinese. He admires the communist Chinese. What this scandal shows, Lisa, is he actually wanted to be one of the communist Chinese. He wanted to marry into the communist Chinese. That's what he really wanted. And then the idiot realized they don't like Westerners down there. They'll use us, they'll pay us, they'll bribe us, but we're not good enough to marry their daughters. And to be fair, it's not just the father of Jenna Wang, his former lover. It's every leadership position, every leader in communist China. You marry a Westerner. Hell, you marry a non-Chinese. You're out. You marry a Korean. You marry a Japanese girl, or a Japanese man, forgive me. You marry a Japanese man, a Vietnamese man, another Asian man. You've betrayed the tribe. You're gone. You're completely disowned. But a Westerner and an American to boot, unthinkable, beyond scandalous, complete shame and disgrace to the family. So he realized, they're so xenophobic, truly xenophobic. I'll never truly be one of them through marriage. So he takes their money. But he reminds me a lot of the communists of the 1930s who truly admired Lenin and Stalin's Russia. They mastered the language because they loved it. They mastered the literature because they loved it. They traveled as often as they could because they loved it. And they were willing to do anything above and beyond the call of duty for, Mother Russia, the Mother Soviet Union, the Soviet homeland. That's Tim Walz. Yes, he likes the money. Yes, he likes the power and the perks. But you can see it's in his soul, it's in his heart, it's in his gut, it's in his brain. It's in his very core. He believes communist China is the model for the world and the model for the future. And he's one of them now. He's clearly one of them. He's what they call a Sinophile, a true admirer of communist China. And Lisa, to have somebody like him a heartbeat away from the presidency, even if he's not given power or portfolio, the espionage, the spying capacities, the ability to provide complete unfettered access to the entire intelligence of our country is unlimited for Beijing. I'm telling you right now, even more than Joe Biden, Kamala and Tim Walz win in November. It is the greatest victory for the Chinese Communist Party since they seized power in 1949. To me, there's no question. There's no question. If I'm a foreign power, and this is going to, the vice president of our top rival, the superpower of the world, the United States, is completely in our back pocket, and he'll bend over backwards to do anything for us and to serve us, I'm looking around. I'm saying, boys, girls, we got the Americans by the tonsils. All we got to do now is squeeze. Lisa, am I wrong?
No, you're dead on, like you say. I have one more thing I want to say.
Yes, Lisa.
And I've been trying to get on all week. We've been letting Donald Trump do all the hard work for us. We can't just go to the polls and circle a little dot. This weekend, everybody should get out on the main street of every single city and town in this country with red shirts on and watch the wave.
I so agree with you. We've got to show our support for Trump. We've got to go out and vote. We got to make sure we bring friends and family members to vote. And we've got to publicly show our support. And I love the idea of all of us wearing red shirts. And to put my money where my mouth is, Lisa, starting Friday afternoon, when the weekend hits, Kuhner Man is wearing a red shirt on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on top of that, my MAGA hat goes with me wherever I go. And so I'm going to let everybody know publicly, I back Donald Trump. And if we all do that, it's going to be a tremendous sign of support, especially just days before the election. Lisa, thank you very much for that call. Outstanding call. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Jake, how are you?
Jeff, you got the toughest show to get on because your show is so popular.
Oh, thank you,
Jake. I got to say, Jeff, I have 3 points to make, Jeff. Number one is I'll bet you the best steakhouse in the United States, that comedian at the Trump rally in Madison Square Garden was paid off by a Democratic operative. I guarantee you. Guaranteed. He's not that stupid. There's 450,000 Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania. They know they have to win Pennsylvania. They paid this guy off to do that. There's no question in my mind. No question. Because they'll do anything to steal this election. Anything. I doubt if he was up there just as a comedian. I guarantee you he was paid off by the Democrats. And if you're going to comment on that, please don't hang up because I have 2 more points I want to make.
Yeah, please, go ahead, Jake. I do want to comment on your first point because I think it's extremely important. But please, go ahead. Finish your other 2 points, Jake.
Number 2, the biggest problem we have in this country, as you know, it's not what the Democrats say. It's what the corrupt media says. Because I talk to people who just mouth the stupid lies from CNN and MSNBC. I just talked to somebody yesterday who right down the line with 10 or 20 points of what NBC says every day. and I was texting him saying, you can't believe me. This guy's not a stupid person. But when people are brainwashed, Jeff, they don't know they're brainwashed. And so the biggest problem we have in this country, and you've been saying it all along, is the corrupt state media. That's my second point. My third point, I want to thank you and Sandy and all of your staff for bringing out things that we don't hear about in other talk shows, because, as you know, I listen to all of them. And you bring out things such as that line in Pennsylvania where the girl was arrested for just saying, please stay and vote. Outrageous. Nobody brings those things up. He made me believe I was gay, so it was very normal. And then he came out at 18 or 19.
Well, Jake, look, you've made three, I think, very serious, substantial points. They're covering up the third point. The local media in particular are doing everything they can to cover up what Tim Walz has been accused of now. And this is something that has been haunting him for many, many years. Okay. Look, the guy's a scumbag pervert. There's no question. There's no question. Okay. And it's going to come out. They can't keep this bottled up forever. They just want to sweep it under the rug to get beyond the election. But I want to go back to your first point, because that's the one now that I think is most relevant. So it was an incredible event at Madison Square Garden. It was a home run after home run after home run. And so what has the media done? They have now seized, pounced, jumped all over a comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, is I believe how you pronounce his last name. I've never heard of this guy. Unknown comedian to me, never heard of him. So he comes up and says a few jokes. Some of them, I saw it on YouTube. Mildly funny. I mean, I don't think this guy is hilarious. But anyway, let's put it this way. He's not Jackie Mason. I like Jackie Mason. I think Jackie Mason is very funny. All right, so he's no Jackie Mason. Let's put it that way. And he made a few crude jokes. And in particular, he went on about the Puerto Ricans. And so he compared Puerto Rico to a floating island of garbage. And then he took some real cheap shots at Puerto Ricans. And so this is now what the media is seizing on. Now, from what I've read, he also wanted to call Kamala the C word. And I don't mean communist, you know, the degrading C word for women, the private part. And Trump's people, the people that ran the Trump campaign said, no, cut that one out. We don't need that. But they let the Puerto Rican jokes go by. They said, fine, you want to make the Puerto Rican jokes, go ahead and make the Puerto Rican jokes. Now, let me be brutally honest with you. I don't like to censor people. I don't like to tell them what to say, what not to say. But why would you potentially commit an unnecessary, unforced error like this? You've got an incredible all-star lineup. You've got Dr. Phil. You've got Hulk Hogan. You've got J.D. Vance, who may be now one of the biggest, best speakers in the country. You've got RFK Jr. You've got Tulsi Gabbard. You've got Melania. You've got the Trump family. You've got Trump himself. It's a star-studded, phenomenal, magnificent lineup in a star-studded, magnificent arena. And you bring this no-name, unknown comedian? You don't need the comedian. But you know he's a comedian that's courted controversy in the past. And now he spits in the faces, as Jake rightly said, of hundreds of thousands of Puerto Rican voters, many of whom could be decisive in some of these swing states. Why? Why? Now, do I think it's the scandal of the century? No. Do I think it's going to cost Trump the election? No. But I don't understand why. When the stakes are this high, why do you need this guy to do his routine? Just disinvite him. You don't need him. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Now, of course, the media, they're looking for their Nazi, fascist, racist narrative to somehow be confirmed. So they can't pin it on Trump or JD or RFK or Tulsi or Dr. Phil. So they've pinned it on this guy. 919 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, my friends, here we are. We are now 1 week away from the most important election in our lifetimes, arguably the most important election since 1860. And now for the next week, both candidates, Donald Trump and Comrade Kamala, are going to be making their final pitch, their final message to voters. And when everything is said and done, we know exactly what Trump is going to be saying for the next 7 days. You want a restoration of normalcy? Vote for me. It's really, honestly, it's that simple. You want freedom? Vote for me. You want a secure border? Vote for me. You want to tame inflation and lower gas prices, food, grocery prices? Vote for me. You want to end these disastrous wars? Vote for me. You want to end censorship once and for all? Vote for me. You want to save our constitutional republic? Vote for me. Kamala Harris has a very different message. Listen now to J.D. Vance at a rally in Wisconsin, and he hits the nail right on the head. You want to know what Kamala's closing message is? Here it is. Roll cut 12, Mike.
I've heard about the joke. I haven't actually seen the joke that you mentioned, but I think that it's telling that Kamala Harris's closing message is essentially that all of Donald Trump's voters are Nazis and you should get really pissed off about a comedian telling a joke. That is not the message of a winning campaign. And most importantly, it's not the message of a person who's fit to be the president of the United States of America. And my own view on this is, look, again, I haven't seen the joke. Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it.
So there's J.D. Vance saying, look, maybe it was a bad decision to have him, good decision. It was a bad joke, a good joke. He didn't hear it. But look, a stupid joke is nothing compared to what Kamala is now telling the American people. And he's right. And this is, to me, what is most disgraceful, disgusting, and despicable of all. She's not just calling Trump a Nazi, which is horrible, beyond the pale, a libelous smear. But now the Democrats are saying, if you vote for Trump, if you're a Trump supporter, i.e. all of you, every single one of you listening, me, my wife, my children, Sandy, Mike, everybody, we're all Nazis as well. And so listen now to Congressman Byron Donalds, who, by the way, is turning out to be an absolutely brilliant, ferocious surrogate and defender of Trump. I've seen him on CNN. I've seen him on ABC News. He was on CNBC, on fire. Byron Donalds has a future in the Republican Party. Believe me, he is a brilliant, articulate, intelligent, combative black conservative who gives no quarter. So he's on with CNBC's Andrew Sorkin. Sorkin is a big lib, big Kamala supporter. And now they're trying to claim, I can't believe the vitriol at the Madison Square Garden rally. That joke, that offensive joke about Puerto Ricans. Is this the kind of person we want in the White House? Well, A, Trump didn't make the joke. It was a comedian. But you want to talk about vitriol? Listen to Byron Donalds. I mean, destroy CNBC host Andrew Sorkin. Roll cut 17, Mike.
to the extent that there are folks who, by the way, may agree with the policies of Trump,
yes,
but don't want to vote for Trump. You know some of those people. The reason that they don't want to vote for Trump is because they see, either in his character or the people who seem to support him, seem to be engaged in that or willing to engage in that, right? Because what you don't see, you don't go to other rallies for Harris or see in a Harris rally that kind of vitriol. It just you see. Look,
you don't?
I don't think you do.
Kamala Harris spends half her time talking about her rival as Hitler, after he's been. There have been attempts on his life, not once, but twice. She's doing it right now. Every Democrat official at these rallies refers to him as Adolf Hitler. You got Hillary Clinton running around there hawking her book that nobody wants to buy, frankly. And she's talking about how this is akin to 1939. Are you out of your mind? You want to talk about rhetoric? Let's compare.
You should have seen Sorkin's face. I mean, he got annihilated. He got absolutely annihilated. Now, you got to hear this. This is now what Kamala's supporters in the media have been reduced to. It's not just that Trump is Hitler. It's not just that you and I are Nazis. But if Trump wins, he's going to end interracial marriage and force white people to divorce their non-white partners and force them to marry fellow whites. Listen now. We got to wait till after the break. Okay. Here is Whoopi Goldberg on The View. I'm going to play it right after the break. We don't have time to squeeze it in now. But in other words, he's going to enforce white supremacy on the country. This is how freaking unhinged they've become. So, to all of you out there, if you're married to a non-white person, non-Caucasian, according to these moonbats, get ready, because Trump is going to force you to divorce your partner or your spouse and then coerce you again to marry or live with someone of the white race. Now, you tell me, seriously, this is a winning message? These people live on planet Earth? Whoopi Goldberg shouldn't be institutionalized? It's all coming undone, my friends. Liberalism is a mental disorder, and this campaign has proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt. 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Oh, you want to talk about cleaning up the liberal bull? Listen now to Whoopi Goldberg on The View. Here it comes. Not only are we going to see white supremacy and Nazism, but get ready. If you happen to be married to someone who's not Caucasian, who's non-white, Trump's going to force you to get a divorce or break up your relationship and then force you to marry somebody who's white. I mean, how does The View stay on the air? And how the hell is this woman still having a job on The View? She's stark raving mad. This is Trump derangement syndrome on steroids. Here's Whoopi, roll cut 16. Mike.
We have never been asleep. No one's ever let us sleep because we've had to keep, because we've had to keep reminding people that women don't want to be spoken down to. Gay folks don't want to be spoken down to. Straight folks don't want to be spoken to. People don't want to be spoken down to. They don't want to be made fun of. Get a better gig. If you're a comic, be funnier. Find a different way than to come after people because of their heritage, which they are born into. It is not a choice. You are who you are. Right. And here you're going to make all kind of fun. People said no more. We're tired of that. That's why people are saying, right there, you heard the women say, listen, what we heard at that rally should be enough to shake folks awake, because he's talking about you. All of you. Yeah, all of you. Talking about you. It's us. He's not going to, say, oh, you're with a white guy, I'm going to keep you from being deported. No, he's going to deport you and put the white guy with someone else. The man is out there.
as she's saying this, her eyes are like looping in her head. Like, really, that's the thing. She's certifiably nuts. You know, like her eyes are like just like Google's, like googly eye. That's what we should really. Her eyes are just like rolling in her socket. You know, like a deranged woman. He's gonna deport you and then have your white guy marry a white woman. That's what he's gonna do. That's what he's gonna do. So this comedian makes a joke about Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. And all of a sudden, we go from this to even Hitler didn't force people to break up marriages. You can't make this crap up. These people are losing their collective minds. And they're losing their collective minds because they can see now very clearly, 7 days before the election, Trump is at the gates of victory. And I'm telling you, no one's going to remember this comedian and no one's going to remember this joke. But everyone's going to remember that the event at Madison Square Garden was an historic watershed. And there is now no going back. The America First movement is now the majority movement in America. All races, all creeds, all religions, men, women, young, old, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. That's what they saw, both in the arena and outside the arena. And that's now what is frightening the elites. The people are rising up. And we're mad as hell. And we're not going to take it anymore. Tuesday is not just an election. It's a reckoning. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Yeah, Mags was right, Jeff. America First people in New Hampshire, they're in the 1,000-mile club. Okay, they've put a lot of the patriots I'm working around the state with have put up hundreds, thousands of signs, and they're going door to door, talking to voters, changing. I don't know how many signs, Jeff, we changed from Pence to Vance. It's unbelievable, and we've spent $5,000 to $10,000 per. So many patriots buying signs, and I think Trump got hold of this. And if Ayotte is up 3 to 5 points, Trump is up 18 to 20 points. Believe me, I go. And this is why they're saying it's possible to win. Because when you get in those numbers, you can't rig it. It makes it very difficult, Jeff. And this is where the globalist governor, Sununu, is going to go. He's going to go in that Manchester Seacoast area. That's where he rigs a lot of these elections. Okay? We got to remember, when Mike Gill ran, they rigged his election, took him off the voter roll, okay, and took him off the ballot. This was Bill Gardner at the time. And who was that dirty rat? The deputy secretary? It was David Scanlon, okay, sitting in the background. He got rewarded because it was to help get Sununu elected. And he got rewarded as he was a new Secretary of State. And they were working with the Derry clerk, Aaron Dietrich. And who was the minion there? Was Dan Healy. And he got a job as clerk in Nashua with the global Marxist communist.
No, Dan, I hear you. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. I get your point. Look, Chris Sununu to me is a snake in the grass. He's a rhino globalist sellout and a traitor. There's no question about it. And he's done everything to try to undermine Trump. Now that he sees Trump is on the verge of winning, have you noticed, now that snake is trying to jump back on the Trump bandwagon. So that's Snake Sununu for you. Dan, what I'm trying to push hard behind the scenes is I'm trying to convince the Trump camp and to have the president, not J.D. Vance, to have Trump himself come down to New Hampshire this weekend. I don't care if it's a Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday. but he needs to make at least one big high-profile visit and rally just before the November 5th election, because I'm telling you, I agree with you completely. Trump can win New Hampshire, but they've got to make one last push. Should Trump hold a rally or a town hall in the Granite State, in the Live Free or Die state this weekend, Dan?
I would personally, Jeff, I agree with you. I would love a rally, and I would love it to be on a Friday and have the Kuhner man have his show on the sidewalk, broadcasting live, and have the MAGA Patriots talking with Kuhner man. That's what I'd love to see. And we got to look at and we also got to talk about this. And Mark Robinson, he's like J.D. Vance. He joined the 1776 PAC. Even Project Veritas talked about how he told Ken Cuccinelli and Ari Fleischer and Kyle Rove to F off. Okay? And we got to start talking about U.S. Senate. There's Tim Chaney in Montana, Sam Brown in Nevada, Bernie Moreno in Ohio, Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. And my son is in Phoenix right now going to med school, Jeff. And he told me that Kerry Lake there's signs everywhere. It's like she's running unopposed. And we can't forget, okay, that over there, she's in 1776 PAC, and Trump is helping her, and Kerry Lake. And New Hampshire loves Kerry Lake. When she came down here, people were they were all over her. And I'm telling you, over there, you got Kristen Sinema. She's not an independent. She votes with like a Democrat.
Oh, you're dead on. No, you're dead on. Look, no, Dan, look, look, you're right. Look, right now, look, Trump is looking great. We got to win the White House. That is no question. I mean, no question. But look, we can flip the Senate. Montana is an easy pickup for us. West Virginia is another easy pickup. You've got Bernie Moreno in Ohio. He should beat Sherrod Brown, the Democrat. You mentioned Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. That's another one. Pennsylvania, I think, is going to go Trump big. That should carry McCormick. And look, Kerry Lake is in a very winnable race. I got family. My sister-in-law, my brother-in-law live there. My sister, my other brother-in-law, my sister's husband, my two nephews, they live in Arizona. They're all big Kerry Lake supporters. But I'll tell you what the Arizona Republicans are saying. Mitch McConnell is shafting her. He has sent her no money. None. McConnell is doing everything he can to guarantee that Kerry Lake loses. By the way, nothing to Bernie Moreno in Ohio. MAGA Republican. McConnell's looking to shaft him. Ted Cruz in Texas. No money, no funding, looking to shaft him. Rick Scott in Florida, looking to shaft him. All he's interested in is that loser rhino Larry Hogan in Maryland, who I think is going to lose, by the way. Okay, so this is McConnell. McConnell is trying to sabotage Trump by denying him a Senate majority, especially a Senate MAGA majority. And that's why we got to do everything possible. The stronger Trump is on election day, he's going to have long coattails. And he can take the Montana Senate seat, the West Virginia Senate seat, the PA Senate seat, the Ohio Senate seat, and yes, the Arizona Senate seat. And all we need is 2 to flip the Senate. I predict Trump is going to deliver 4, if not 5 Senate seats for the Republican. That means Republicans get the White House, keep the House, and flip the Senate. You want to talk about a red wave? That's a mother red wave. Agree, disagree. Couple lines are open. 617-266-6868. More with your calls next. I'm going to be brutally honest with all of you. Hey, it's a week now. Next Tuesday, a week from today, will be Election Day. The most momentous, probably the most momentous election in my lifetime. One of the most important moments in my lifetime. And arguably, as I've said, one of the most important elections really since 1860. And I'm feeling very good. I feel very good. I feel good about the polls. I feel very good about how Trump is running his campaign. I feel very good about the surge the momentum, the energy, the passion, the dynamism of his campaign compared to that of Comrade Kamala. Now, they can steal it. I'm never going to underestimate the voting fraud machine of the Democrats. 2020, I will never forget that for the rest of my life. So I'm not saying we're going to win, far from it. But as things stand right now, do I feel positive, confident, and optimistic? I would be lying to you if I did not say yes. 9:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay. In answer to the question of whether Trump should come down to New Hampshire for one more big rally, a final push before Election Day, which is something I'm urging the Trump camp to do. This is from 603. Jeff, as a New Hampshire resident, hell yes. Trump should come do one final push in New Hampshire by holding a rally, and he also needs to endorse Lily Tang for Congress to help boost her numbers. I agree on both points, 603. Trump should come this weekend, do a mother rally, and definitely throw his entire support behind Lily Tang. She is a phenomenal candidate, and I back her unequivocally. Dan in New Hampshire. Speaking of New Hampshire, thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure.
I feel optimistic like yourself. Quite honestly, I've been a walking billboard, wearing the hats, wearing the shirts, basically talking the talk that needs to be said. I've gone into restaurants. I've gone into market baskets. I've gone into pretty much everywhere where there's a lot of people, and I take my time, and I can tell you right now, this is what I'm seeing. A lot of young people in their 20s, they come up to me and they say, I love your shirt. I love your hat. I've never seen that type of surge. And believe me, I've been going for years, as you know. And this is something that I have never seen. And then the people that used to be so opposition that they're still just as mad as they ever have, but they see that Kamala's a failed candidate and they say, well, we don't like Trump. We don't like her. We're not going to vote at all, which is fine because that's just not a vote for Kamala. Now, I see that happening also on the street. You know, you've got people that are standing on the corners in Rockingham County, 20, 30, 40 people at every corner. I have never seen a political positive push like this in my entire life. I think if Trump comes to Atkinson Resort, the country club that we have over there, right in the heart of Rockingham County, where all the voters, well, the majority of the people live, I think that that would be just wonderful. He'd be solidifying it, and I'd look forward to seeing him myself, and it's not too far for you to go neither. And I'll tell you right now, I am cautiously optimistic. I feel that, of course, they could steal it the way that you do, but I'm telling you right now, Jeff, I am getting that warm, comfy feeling. If everything continues the way that I feel that it will, I think we got it.
From your lips to God's ears. Dan, thank you so much for that call. Look, I'm telling you right now, and this is how important this is for all of you in New Hampshire, okay, in particular. I'm telling you, you take it to the bank. Trump wins New Hampshire, he wins the election. It's really that simple. Because it means he's very strong in the other battleground states. So you have to go out and vote. Get a family member, get a friend. I'm begging you, just vote. Tom, red, white, and blue dynamite baby in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Tom. And as always, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff Kuhner. And on the Kuhner Report, we know first and foremost, never trust a lefty. That's red, white, and blue dynamite, baby.
Tom, what's on your mind, my friend?
Jeff, 3 flash points. I didn't have a problem with the Puerto Rican joke, but I would have gone with an Adam Carolla, a conservative comedian who's really earned the spot to be up there. I wouldn't have gone with a no-name. Second of all, the unforced error was the Arnold Palmer joke, Jeff. There was no need for the locker room talk. It wasn't that funny. Talking about male private parts, unforced, completely unnecessary. And the third thing, Jeff, is could we change the lexicon. We live in a constitutional republic. Would it kill President Trump? And I have to call this fairly, to call us a constitutional republic and stop with the democracy. It's not mob rule. Come on, let's clean up the language a little bit. No unforced errors as we get to the finish line. We don't need read my lips, no new taxes. We don't need anything like that, Jeff.
Tom, we've got less than a minute. You're in the New Jersey, New York area. Big rally, obviously, at Madison Square Garden. Can Trump do the impossible? Can he win either New York or New Jersey? Or do you think he'll come up just short?
I think Marijuana Harris could be the Walt. If we had a free, open, and fair election, she's looking. Her best friend is Walter Mondale, I think, Jeff, right now.
So, Tom, you're saying if this is a free and fair election, Trump takes New York?
Oh, I think he could. I think he can run the table. He's just gotta stay in his lane and not be presidential. I hate that term. Be yourself.
But just lay off the private part jokes. And I agree with you. Would it kill him once in a while to remind everybody we don't live in a democracy, thank God. We live in a constitutional republic, the greatest in human history. And on that note, bye-bye.